All right, so we've been seeing this growing phenomenon of social conservatism on the left. Uh, there are people who identify as socialists, but who hold socially conservative views and values. Generally, these values are centered around three different areas of life: nation, family, and religion. Now, there are good Marxist arguments against all of those different, aspects of life. I don't particularly care to get into them and, spend a lot of time, refuting why, as socialists or as Marxists, we should not hold to, traditional values concerning nation, family, and religion. Those arguments are out there. My podcast, we've been talking a lot lately about gender and about how gender and reproductive labor is an essential part of capitalism and an essential part of what makes the capitalist clock tick. So just as an example, when we talk about family and family in traditional terms, and when we criticize that as being patriarchal, when we criticize that as Marxists, as communists, for being patriarchal, we don't strictly mean that it is patriarchal in any kind of individualist sense. We have to, look at it in, systemic terms. And it's not even really about men. It's about reproductive labor and how that categorizes people in society according to their gender and anchors these categorized individuals to certain domains of life. The system is patriarchal, not in a way that is like designed to benefit men. That's not the idea here. It's in a way to keep labor power growing, to be able to continually generate surplus value. The system needs to continually generate new workers, which means that it needs to tie certain members of the population to certain spheres of human activity. So the whole system is rigged against people with ovaries. I mean, this is not meant to be like a turfy or trans-exclusionary kind of viewpoint. I feel like capitalism, could be amenable to breaking down or incorporating certain like non-binary or trans kind of signifiers, but it really comes down to reproduction of the species. It's in a very materialist sense. So unfortunately, it's how we understand and criticize gender in materialist terms does need to have some relation to physiology and biology and whatnot. Anyway, that's one example of an argument from a Marxist perspective against one of these kind of like traditional viewpoints, and why as Marxists, as communists, we should not fall for this kind of fall for the dark side, the pull of the dark side of traditional values. But I don't really care to get into like nation or religion. Personally, I consider myself a spiritual person, and I advocate that everybody out there hold some kind of or develop some kind of spiritual practice. But yeah, I don't really care. What I am more interested in talking about is like what to do with these people, these young people. Generally, I think by and large, these trad lefties are of the younger generations for reasons that I've gone into. It's not hard to see that the young generation is fucked, and capitalism has taken everything away from them. So they're desperately searching for something to fill the void. But what I find interesting, what I find more fruitful to think about is, what to do with these people, what strategically we can do with these people. And I think, this pertains to many more areas of life. But, the idea is that, these people, this entire generation really is susceptible to falling into these kinds of traditional viewpoints because their future is bleak and because their present is empty. They have no real life or no real prospects. So they reach back to kind of mythical past when things were supposed to have been good and to have worked, and they had all these kinds of prospects and like community and like a strong national identity and a nice family unit that you could structure your life around and whatnot, and economic prosperity at the same time. It's not a coincidence that a lot of this traditional kind of fetishization reverts back to this kind of 50s ideal when there was like a big economic boom in the United States. But what is more interesting is like what are we going to do with this whole ideology? I mean, it's like we can't just blame people for wanting to fill the void that capitalism has left them with. Instead of a national identity, people have like television. Instead of a community like based around a religion or something like that, people have television. They're atomized. Instead of family, like a healthy family unit or something, people have like these terrible families, and they're atomized. They have television and they're alone. That's basically what all of our lives are like. Those of us who are fortunate enough to be able to tolerate our families, we have some advantage there, but ultimately, we're all alone. Capitalism has taken away these kind of traditional areas of life that could fill up the days and like provide some joy. Again, like a community based around your church or whatever. A national identity that you could feel pride in, and like a sense of like some kind of like a project that you're involved with like all of your country people, and then also like a family that you could feel like you're building something and like contributing to the future or whatever. That's all gone, and there's nothing to fill the void. It's just empty, and we have television and empty calories. So yeah, again, like I'm sorry to be so bleak here. It's gotten so much worse since the pandemic, but it's we can't really fault the youth out there, myself included, certainly, for desperately searching for anything to fill the void. So what are we going to do? I don't really have an answer, but I certainly know that the solution is neither to accept, as another commenter on the last video that I made on this subject said, the solution is not to, or like it's not acceptable for leftists or communists, socialists, whatever, to tail any kind of like reactionary ideology and simply accept it in the name of building some kind of socialist movement. That is economism, and there is a long history of criticizing economism. Basically, economism being this political strategy of strictly confining your rhetoric and like your movement building to the economic domain, like building unions, but not as a kind of like solidarity based practice, not something, not framing it around like a community or any kind of like greater vision, but strictly about getting workers a higher wage or something like that. That is like economism. And it's not acceptable for a communist movement to, accept reactionary viewpoints that may or may not exist in the working class, in the bulk of the population, amongst the hoi polloi, and like just try to build an economistic movement, but it's also not acceptable to embrace these kinds of trad values. Like, we've been, as Marxists, been criticizing nation, religion, and family literally since the Communist Manifesto. All critiques of all of those things are contained in the ancient text. What is that meme from Star Wars? From the Dead Sea Scrolls, the ancient text. It's there from the beginning. Like, there should be no confusion around those kinds of points. And I mean, that is a citation that to authority simply because I don't care to get into it. Needless to say, the arguments are there, and I find them persuasive. And if you're curious, then sound off in the comments, and maybe I'll try to recommend something to you. But yeah, I mean, what is the solution here? I mean, I think it's probably to I don't know, like meet people where they are, to find some kind of balance here, to fill up the void that is left in people's lives, to like develop a social form that can provide for the needs that people are lacking: family, community, and religion, some kind of spirituality, some kind of social form, some kind of social practice that can fill that need, but which is progressive rather than reactionary, which is based on communistic values rather than traditionalist values. I think these communization guys, I've been reading a lot of this stuff for my podcast, and I did not set out to become a communizer, nor was I a communizer in the beginning, but I feel like a lot of what they say is pretty good. A lot of their emphasis on things like abolishing all mediating structures, everything that kind of divides up and distinguishes or categorizes, provides for the boundaries by which we can make categorizations amongst the working class. Abolish all of that, abolish the working class, abolish race, abolish gender, abolish everything. Get rid of all mediating structures, and try to find a form of social relation that is communist, that is non-capitalist. And once you have figured that out, then you will have already done a communist revolution, because a communist revolution consists of finding a way for people to relate to each other, to interact with each other, that is not based around value. And this kind of gets to, like, a lot of people say, there's a lot more to it. You have to organize production or whatever. That shit is fucking played out. We don't have to think about organizing production. Amazon has already taken care of that for us. We only need to think about how to relate to each other, how to interact with each other, and then we could just nationalize Amazon. It's not fucking complicated. Anyway, I've gone on for long enough. I'm sorry that I didn't really have any clear-cut answers for you here, but I think it is an important topic, especially for, the kids to be talking about and thinking about. So I just wanted to make another video on it. Tomorrow we'll be getting into some Deleuze if I can dig up the right quote. But until next time,